A young man helps a blind elderly woman carry her groceries home without knowing who she really was. The next morning, a black car stopped in front of his door, and he froze upon hearing what the man in the suit said. Jamal lived with his mother in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio. Their neighborhood was worn down, and most buildings looked neglected. Many walls were covered with old graffiti, and some windows were boarded up. The sidewalks were uneven, and a few streetlights no longer worked. Trash collected in corners because the city rarely came by to clean. This was the place Jamal called home, and he understood its problems. He was 16 years old, tall, thin, and always carried a notebook to record his thoughts and school assignments. Inside the apartment, space was tight. Jamal's mother worked long hours as a house cleaner in wealthier parts of the city. She left before sunrise and returned after dark. The furniture in their living area was old and simple. They often ate inexpensive meals, sometimes canned vegetables or cheap cuts of meat. They tried their best to keep the kitchen and bedroom neat. The bedroom was small, with one bed they shared by taking turns when one was resting. It was not comfortable, but they managed because they had no other option. Despite their struggles, they supported each other and found comfort in their bond. Jamal's father had died not long ago. He had been a victim of street violence in the same neighborhood. His absence created a sadness that weighed on Jamal and his mother. They did not talk about it often, but it shaped their daily lives. Jamal missed his father's presence and guidance. He remembered that his father had wanted him to work hard and build a better life. Jamal hoped to go to college, which would make him the first in his family to reach that goal. He knew this dream seemed far away because his mother barely earned enough to cover the rent and basic needs. At school, Jamal tried to stay focused. He paid attention in class and took careful notes. He knew that good grades might be his only path to college. He took his notebook with him everywhere, writing down information about scholarships and application deadlines. The school counselor said competition for financial aid was strong. There were not many scholarships available, and many students gave up. Jamal did not want to give up, but he understood how difficult it would be. The thought of tuition costs made him anxious. Each afternoon, Jamal walked home from school. The route took him through blocks with damaged buildings and broken fences. He saw people waiting for buses that came late. He noticed how some people in the neighborhood looked at him with suspicion. Jamal was a black teenager in a place where young men often faced negative assumptions. He tried not to let this bother him, but it did. He carried his notebook as a reminder of his goals. He wanted people to see that he was serious about his future, not a source of trouble. Still, he knew that many had formed opinions about him before he even spoke. When Jamal got home, he usually prepared a simple meal for himself. His mother would return late, and he tried to leave something for her to eat. He understood her exhaustion. Sometimes he wished he could help her more. He felt pressure to succeed so that he could improve their situation. He hated seeing the stress in her face and the tired look in her eyes. His father's death had made everything harder, and now it was just the two of them. Jamal wanted to make his father proud, even though he could no longer hear his father's voice. Jamal's grades were decent, but he needed them to be excellent to stand out. He spent hours reading his textbooks and writing notes in his notebook. He hoped to find a way to pay for college. He knew that without financial help, it would be nearly impossible. Sometimes he asked the school counselor about local scholarships, but there was never much good news. Everyone wanted help, but the resources were limited. Jamal tried to think of other ways to earn money. His mother's income barely covered rent, food, and other bills. They had nothing extra. Late at night, Jamal lay on a thin mattress on the floor. He let his mother use the bed because she worked more hours. He listened to the sounds of the neighborhood, distant voices, passing cars, and occasionally sirens. He felt trapped, but he tried to remain hopeful. He told himself that if he kept working hard, something might happen. He did not expect miracles, but maybe there would be a small chance he could grab. He knew that the odds were against him. Before falling asleep, Jamal wrote down his long-term goals in his notebook. He listed a few colleges and their requirements. He also listed community colleges as backup options. He wanted a 4-year university, but he knew how expensive it would be. He did not want to disappoint his mother. They never talked much about his college dreams because it was painful to consider the cost. Still, he held on to the idea that one day he might break out of this cycle. As he closed his eyes, he had no way of knowing that the next day would bring him closer to that goal in a way he never expected. The next morning, Jamal followed his usual routine. He left the apartment quietly so he would not wake his mother, though she was probably already at work. The hallway smelled faintly of old cleaning products and dampness. Outside, the streets were the same. He walked to school, thinking about the assignments due that day. In class, he paid attention, took notes, and kept to himself. Most classmates did not share his interests. Some of them did not believe in college. They said it was too expensive and not worth the trouble. Jamal did not argue with them. He just kept writing in his notebook. After school, Jamal left the building and made his way back through the same streets. He noticed familiar faces on porches and at bus stops. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until he reached the small grocery store near his apartment block. He saw an elderly woman standing on the sidewalk, holding several plastic grocery bags. She had a white cane in her other hand. As Jamal approached, he realized that she was blind. She seemed to be struggling to carry her bags while keeping track of where she was. Jamal stopped a short distance away, unsure of what to do. He wanted to help her, but he also worried that she might be frightened if he approached suddenly. He knew that trust was hard to earn in this neighborhood. People did not always welcome strangers offering help. He did not want to make the woman feel uncomfortable. He watched her for a few moments, feeling uncertain. She adjusted her grip on the bags and tried to move slowly along the sidewalk. Jamal thought about his father's advice to always do the right thing. This seemed like a moment to do something kind, without expecting anything in return. But he hesitated. He worried that others would misinterpret his intentions. He also worried that maybe the woman did not want help. Maybe she knew exactly where she was going. Still, it looked like she was having trouble. He took a small step forward and then stopped again, unable to decide. He looked around. A few people passed by without paying attention. Some crossed the street, and others went about their business. No one offered to help her. Jamal wondered if he was the only one who noticed her struggle. The more he watched, the more he felt guilty for doing nothing. Yet he could not gather the courage to approach her. He asked himself what his mother would say. She had taught him to care about others, but this situation felt complicated. The woman moved a few steps forward, tapping her cane. She was trying to find a clear path to wherever she was headed. Jamal's chest felt tight. He wanted to help, but he remained frozen. After a moment, the woman found a rhythm and continued slowly on her way. Jamal allowed her to leave without speaking up. He stood there as she disappeared around a corner. He felt disappointed in himself. He should have at least offered to carry a bag or guide her down the block. As Jamal entered his apartment, he tried to push the memory from his mind. He prepared a small meal and opened his textbooks. He told himself that maybe he had done the right thing by not interfering, but deep down he knew he had missed an opportunity to do good. He studied for a while, trying to focus on science and math problems. It was hard to concentrate. He kept seeing the image of the elderly woman struggling with her bags. Later, while reviewing his notes for an upcoming test, he promised himself that if he ever saw her again, he would be braver. He would approach her politely and ask if she needed help. There was nothing wrong with offering assistance. Even if she said no, at least he would have tried. He realized that fear of being misunderstood had stopped him from following his instincts. He did not like that feeling. That night, Jamal's mother returned tired and went straight to bed. He understood She needed rest. He cleaned up the small kitchen area and then lay down on his mattress. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of an old refrigerator. He closed his eyes and thought about the day. Everything was ordinary, except for the moment he saw the blind woman. He wondered if she reached home safely. The thought bothered him. In a place where daily life was hard, small acts of kindness might matter more than he realized. He considered the future again and how he needed something big to change his life. But maybe small steps were important too. Helping a stranger might not pay for college, but it was still the right thing to do. The next time, he decided he would not hesitate. He had learned something from watching her struggle. He learned that he could not let fear of judgment stop him from being kind. Jamal fell asleep with these thoughts in mind. He had no idea that soon he would meet that woman again in a situation where he would have the courage to help. He did not know that this simple decision would lead to unexpected opportunities. For now, he only knew that if the chance came again, he would not let it pass. The next day after school, Jamal followed the same route as before. He did not expect anything special to happen. He carried his notebook and looked at the familiar buildings. The weather was mild, and the streets were not very crowded. He passed the small grocery store again. It was the same place where he had seen the blind elderly woman the previous day. He felt curious and alert. Would he see her again? He was not sure, but he decided he would not ignore any opportunity to help if it appeared. When he turned a corner, he saw her. She was standing near the same area, holding grocery bags and using her cane to feel the sidewalk. Her posture suggested she was having trouble navigating. Jamal slowed down and watched for a moment. This time, he did not hesitate. He approached her carefully and spoke in a calm voice. "Excuse me, would you like some help with your bags?" he asked. The woman tilted her head slightly, as if trying to identify him by voice. She did not seem frightened. Instead, she responded with a gentle tone. "Yes, that would be very kind. I cannot see, and these bags are heavy. Could you carry them a short distance for me? I live nearby." "Of course," Jamal said. He took the bags from her hands and waited for her to tell him which way to go. She held her cane in one hand and lightly touched his arm with the other, just to have some guidance. Jamal made sure to walk slowly. He did not want her to trip or feel unsafe. He led her along the sidewalk, stepping around a broken piece of concrete and then guiding her around a puddle. They moved carefully, and the woman asked a few simple questions. "Do you live around here?" she said. "Yes," Jamal replied. "I live in an apartment building a few blocks away. I'm still in high school." She nodded. "I see. You sound young and polite." Her voice was calm and steady. Jamal was relieved that she seemed comfortable with him. He had worried she might be suspicious. Instead, she appeared to trust his help. They reached a small house with a low fence. She asked him to open the gate, and he did. Inside the yard, there were a few potted plants, and the walkway was clear. Jamal helped her up 2 steps to her front door. She unlocked it with a set of keys from her pocket. Before he set the bags down, she asked, "Do you have a name?" "My name is Jamal," he answered. He placed the grocery bags just inside the door. "Thank you, Jamal," she said. "You have done more than you know. I appreciate your kindness, and I know it is not always easy to help a stranger." Jamal felt a bit shy. He was not used to receiving praise from adults outside his family. "It's no problem," he said. "I'm glad I could help. Is there anything else you need?" She shook her head. "That will be all. Thank you again. You are a special young man." He did not know how to respond, so he said goodbye and turned to leave. Before he walked away, she added, "Jamal, I wish you the best in whatever you are trying to achieve." Her words were warm, and he felt an unexpected comfort in them. He thanked her again and stepped onto the sidewalk. On his way home, Jamal felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. He had done the right thing. He had helped someone without expecting anything in return. He did not know anything about the woman except that she was blind and lived alone. He had no idea that she was anyone important. There was nothing to indicate that. He assumed she was just a resident who needed a hand. He hoped she would remember that there were still people willing to help. When he arrived at his apartment, he prepared a small meal and opened his textbooks. This time it was easier to focus. He felt a bit lighter, as though he had taken a step forward in becoming the kind of person he wanted to be. He studied science facts and math problems, and he noted upcoming assignments in his notebook. He did not think about college fees at that moment. Instead, he thought about being a decent person, just like his mother had always taught him. His mother came home later, tired as usual. Jamal did not mention helping the blind woman. He did not think it was significant enough to bring up. But he kept the memory in his mind as he fell asleep that night. He was sure that he had learned something valuable about being good to others, even in a place where kindness was not always common. He had no idea how his action would change his life. He only knew he had done the right thing. The next morning, Jamal woke up early. He followed his usual routine and went to school. Nothing seemed different. Classes were the same, and his teachers followed their lesson plans. At lunch, he ate in the cafeteria, listening quietly to conversations around him. Some students talked about weekend plans, while others complained about homework. Jamal checked his notebook, ensuring he was on track with his tasks. After school, he made his way home as usual. He passed by the same streets, noticing no changes from the day before. He walked by the grocery store, saw a few people going in and out. The sidewalk was a bit cleaner today, probably because someone had swept the area in the morning. He reached his apartment building and climbed the old stairs to his door. As he approached his apartment, he heard a car engine outside. He looked out the window and saw a black car parked on the street in front of the building. This was unusual. Most cars in this neighborhood were older and often lacked proper maintenance. This car looked new and expensive. Jamal wondered who it belonged to. He had never seen it before. He unlocked his apartment door and stepped inside. The space felt quiet and empty. His mother was still at work. He left his backpack on a chair and opened a window to get some fresh air. He thought about his homework, but before he could start, he heard a firm knock at the door. Jamal paused. He rarely had visitors. Sometimes neighbors asked for something, but most people in the building kept to themselves. He opened the door slowly and saw a man standing in the hallway. The man wore a suit that looked expensive, and he held a briefcase in one hand. He had a neat haircut and wore polished shoes. He looked out of place in this building. "Are you Jamal?" the man asked in a polite tone. Jamal felt uneasy. He wondered what this was about. "Yes, I'm Jamal," he said. "Who are you?" The man introduced himself as an attorney working for the elderly woman Jamal had helped. He spoke clearly, explaining that the woman was not an ordinary resident. She was a well-known philanthropist who had spent decades supporting young people with limited resources. The man said that she had been impressed by Jamal's kindness and wanted to help him. Jamal could not believe what he was hearing. He stood in the doorway, speechless. The attorney continued, stating that the woman wished to provide a full scholarship for Jamal's college education. She also wanted to offer financial assistance to help his family improve their living conditions. The details were complex, but the bottom line was that this was a life-changing opportunity. Jamal managed to speak. "Why would she do that?" he asked. He struggled to understand. He had only carried her groceries and guided her a short distance. The attorney smiled slightly. "She values sincere kindness," he said. "She has helped many young people who have shown character and determination. Your simple act of assistance meant a great deal to her. She believes you deserve a chance to reach your goals." Jamal felt dizzy. His thoughts raced. He wanted to trust this offer, but it seemed too good to be true. Was it a trick? He did not know. He thought about his mother and how she would react. She had always hoped for a way to escape their hardships, but neither of them had expected something like this. The attorney saw Jamal's confusion. "I understand this might be surprising," he said. "You can take your time to think it over. I have some documents and information for you to review. I will return tomorrow to discuss any questions you may have." Jamal nodded slowly. He watched as the attorney handed him a business card and a folder with some papers. He said goodbye and walked down the hallway, his footsteps echoing on the old floor. Jamal stood at the door for a moment, still unsure if what he had heard was real. He closed the door and sat at the small kitchen table. He placed the folder on it, afraid to open it right away. His heart was beating fast. This morning, everything had been normal. Now his life might be about to change in ways he could not imagine. His mother would be home later. Should he tell her now or wait until he understood more? Eventually, Jamal opened the folder. Inside were letters of introduction, information about scholarship programs, and instructions on how the assistance would work. He saw details about financial support, college preparation, and even mentorship opportunities. It all seemed professional and organized. He looked around the apartment, the worn-out furniture, the thin mattress, the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. They suddenly felt temporary. He considered the idea of having a real chance at college, of reducing his mother's burden, of fulfilling the dream his father had wanted for him. Tears came to his eyes, but he blinked them away. This opportunity felt overwhelming, and he was not sure if he deserved it. He had only helped an elderly woman carry groceries. Anyone could have done that. Why had no one else helped her that day? Perhaps that was the point. He realized that many people had passed her by, but he had stopped and offered help. He had chosen to do something, even if it was small. He waited anxiously for his mother's return. He would show her the documents. They would discuss it and decide together. He still felt uncertain, but he knew one thing. This was a chance he could not ignore. He closed the folder and tried to calm himself. The neighborhood sounds came through the open window, but they felt different now. He was on the edge of something new. Jamal sat quietly at the kitchen table, waiting for his mother to return. He watched the light change outside as the afternoon passed into early evening. He felt nervous. This was an important moment, and he needed to present everything clearly to her. He heard footsteps in the hallway, then the key in the door. His mother entered the apartment looking tired as usual. She placed her bag down and noticed the serious expression on Jamal's face. "What's wrong?" she asked, concerned. She moved closer, and Jamal pointed to the folder on the table. He explained what had happened earlier that day. He told her about the man in the suit, the black car, and the strange but wonderful offer. His mother listened carefully, sitting down and looking at the documents. She seemed unsure at first, but as she read through the papers, her eyes widened. The text described a full scholarship opportunity, financial assistance for living expenses, and support for college applications. "Is this real?" she asked quietly. She looked at Jamal as if he might have some secret explanation. "He gave me his business card and these official documents," Jamal said. "I don't know why it would be fake. He said the woman I helped is a well-known philanthropist. I guess I never heard of her because we don't follow that kind of news." His mother turned the pages, reading about the conditions. It seemed the woman was offering this help with no immediate strings attached. The scholarship would cover tuition, books, and even a small living stipend. Additional funds would help them pay overdue bills and improve their apartment. Jamal's mother looked at him, tears in her eyes. She reached for his hand. "This is an incredible opportunity," she said, her voice trembling. "I never imagined something like this could happen to us. But are you sure about it, Jamal? We must be careful. Maybe we should talk to the attorney again and confirm all the details." Jamal nodded. He understood her caution. They agreed to meet the attorney again when he returned. Meanwhile, they would discuss what this could mean for their future. Jamal felt both excitement and fear. He knew that if this was real, he would have a chance to escape the cycle of hardship. Still, he worried about what people would think. Would they say he did not deserve it? Would they think he had tricked the old woman somehow? The next day, Jamal went to school with this secret in his mind. He did not tell anyone about the offer. He wanted to be sure before he shared it. Still, he felt different. He had a sense of possibility that he never had before. He tried to pay attention in class, but his thoughts drifted to the idea of going to college without debt. He imagined his mother feeling less pressure to pay bills. He imagined himself studying in a library at a university campus. During lunch, he overheard some students talking about college. Most of them sounded hopeless, complaining about how expensive it was. Jamal listened quietly. If he announced that he had received a full scholarship from a wealthy benefactor, would they even believe him? He decided to keep quiet for now. He wanted to protect this opportunity until he understood it fully. That afternoon, when he walked home, he noticed the stares of some neighbors. People had seen the black car parked outside their building. In their neighborhood, a fancy car always attracted attention. A few people asked Jamal what had happened, but he just shrugged, saying he was not sure. He did not want to feed rumors. He remembered the instruction to think carefully and to review all details before making a decision. When he returned home, his mother had spread the documents on the table. She had written down a list of questions for the attorney. She wanted to know how long the support would last, what conditions were attached, and whether Jamal would be free to choose his college. Jamal appreciated her careful approach. He did not want to jump into something he did not understand. The following morning, the attorney returned. He answered all their questions patiently. He explained that the philanthropist had a foundation set up to help promising students who lacked resources. She had done this many times before. His job was to handle the paperwork and make sure all legal details were clear. He assured them that no debt would be involved. Jamal and his mother would not be asked to pay anything back. The only expectation was that Jamal would focus on his education and take this opportunity seriously. After the attorney left, mother and son looked at each other. Jamal felt relieved by the attorney's explanations. His mother seemed more at ease, too. She said, "Jamal, this could change your life, but you must be sure. If you accept, you will step into a new world. Are you ready for that?" Jamal hesitated. He felt a heavy responsibility. He wanted this. He wanted to go to college and make his father proud. He also wanted to help his mother. But he worried about what other people would say. He worried he might lose himself, become someone who forgot where he came from. In the end, he realized that this was a chance he might never get again. He could always remember his roots and stay true to his values. "I think I should accept," he said. "I just want to make sure I do it for the right reasons. I helped that woman because it was the right thing to do. I never expected anything in return. I hope accepting this will not change the way I see myself." His mother nodded. "As long as you remember why you started, you will be fine. We can make something good out of this. We can improve our situation and give you a future we never thought possible." Jamal agreed. They would contact the attorney and finalize the details. For now, they decided to tell no one else except maybe the school counselor. They did not want to create misunderstandings or attract jealousy before everything was set. That night, Jamal did his homework with a newfound sense of purpose. He knew he would have to work harder than ever. He understood that nothing in life was guaranteed. Even with a scholarship, he would have to prove himself. But at least now he could try without the constant worry about money. He promised himself that if he succeeded, he would find ways to help others, just as this kind woman had helped him. Over the next few days, Jamal felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. He had accepted the scholarship offer, but he had not yet told many people. He and his mother spoke to the school counselor, who was amazed by the news. The counselor confirmed that the attorney and the philanthropist's foundation were legitimate. Hearing this made Jamal feel more secure. However, when Jamal tried to imagine himself in college, he felt nervous. College seemed like a completely different environment. He would meet students who had grown up in wealthier neighborhoods. He would have to handle academic challenges that might be more intense than anything he had faced before. He wondered if he would fit in. He worried he might lose his identity, trying to adapt to a world that did not understand where he came from. At school, a few classmates asked him if anything strange had happened at his apartment. They mentioned seeing a fancy car and a man in a suit. Jamal answered vaguely, saying it was someone asking for directions. He did not want to lie, but he also did not want to share the full story yet. He knew that once people learned he had received a scholarship through such unusual means, there would be questions and possibly negative rumors. As days passed, Jamal and his mother began making small improvements at home. They used a portion of the financial assistance to catch up on unpaid bills, buy some healthier food, and repair a broken window. These changes made life a bit easier. Jamal noticed his mother looked more relaxed. He liked seeing that. He felt that part of the reason he was accepting this opportunity was for her as well. Despite the positive aspects, Jamal felt pressure building inside him. He remembered some comments from school. A few students had said that people never get something for nothing. Others had warned that outsiders might use young people for publicity. Jamal pushed these thoughts aside, trusting the attorney's explanations. Still, the doubts lingered in his mind late at night. One afternoon, Jamal stopped at a local corner store to buy a snack before going home. A neighbor who had known his family for years asked him, "I saw that fancy car outside your place last week. What's going on, Jamal? Are you involved in something?" Jamal shook his head. "No, nothing bad. It's just someone who helped us out a bit." He tried to keep it simple, but the neighbor looked suspicious. Jamal realized that some people might never understand or believe his good fortune. This made him feel uneasy, but he knew he could not let it bother him too much. His future was more important than what others thought. At home, Jamal reviewed some of the scholarship information. He learned that he would have a mentor who would guide him through the college application process. This mentor could help him choose the right courses and prepare for tests. Jamal was grateful, but he worried about becoming dependent on people he did not know well. He wanted to maintain his independence and keep control over his own decisions. He shared his concerns with his mother. "I'm worried that if I accept all this help, I might lose myself," he said. "I don't want to become someone who forgets where he came from. I also don't want to feel that I owe people everything." His mother understood. "You can still be yourself," she said. "You can choose how you behave and what you believe. The scholarship is a tool, not a chain. It gives you freedom to focus on studying. But who you are inside, that depends on you." Jamal felt a bit better after hearing this. He realized that his values and identity did not have to change. He would remember his neighborhood, his experiences, and his father's memory. He could use this opportunity to improve his life and then find a way to give back. Maybe one day he could help another teenager who was struggling, just as he had been helped now. The following day at school, Jamal visited the counselor's office. He wanted to find out more about the types of colleges he could consider. The counselor showed him a list of universities, their programs, and their admission requirements. Jamal wrote down notes in his notebook, feeling both excited and overwhelmed. He saw opportunities that had once seemed impossible. Now he had financial support and resources to reach them. The counselor reminded him that he would need to keep his grades strong and work on essays and recommendation letters. Jamal nodded, understanding that he would have to put in real effort. There was no guarantee of acceptance into his dream college, but now he had a fighting chance. He left the office feeling determined to do his best. As he walked home, Jamal thought about the old woman. He realized that he still did not know her name. He wondered if he should thank her personally, or if that would be too forward. He considered asking the attorney if he could write her a letter. He just wanted to show appreciation, not because he felt obligated, but because it was the right thing to do. He remembered how she had said he was a special young man. He wanted her to know that he took her words seriously. At home, he studied for his next exam. He pushed away doubts and focused on the path ahead. He understood that there might be social pressures, misunderstandings, and people who questioned his good fortune. He also understood that not everyone would be supportive. Still, this opportunity was real and valuable. He would not waste it. By the end of the evening, Jamal felt more certain than before. He promised himself that he would honor this chance by working hard and staying true to his values. He would do his best in school and keep his integrity. He would remember his family, his neighborhood, and the kindness of the old woman who changed his life. He closed his notebook, feeling ready to move forward. Over the following week, Jamal and his mother completed the necessary steps to confirm the scholarship and financial support. The attorney visited again, this time bringing official forms that needed signatures. Jamal read through every document carefully. The conditions were clear. There was no hidden cost or obligation other than his commitment to focus on his education. The attorney explained how the foundation's funds would be distributed and how Jamal could access mentoring services. Jamal's mother asked detailed questions, wanting to be absolutely sure that everything was legitimate and fair. After the documents were signed, Jamal felt a sense of relief. He had made his decision. He had accepted the help offered by the old woman he had assisted. He understood that this was not something that happened to most people. He reminded himself to remain humble and grateful. He planned to find a way to help others in the future, once he was stable and in a position to do so. For now, he needed to focus on the next steps, improving his grades, preparing for college applications, and adjusting to the new resources available to him. At school, Jamal quietly increased his study efforts. He visited the library more often, stayed after class to ask questions, and made sure his homework was always done on time. When the school counselor saw how serious he was, she introduced him to a few teachers who could provide extra guidance. These teachers were aware of his new opportunity. They offered him suggestions on how to strengthen his academic profile. Jamal took notes carefully, adding new goals to his notebook. Some students noticed that Jamal seemed more determined than before. A few tried to guess what was going on. One classmate approached him after school and said, "I've been hearing rumors that you got some big scholarship. Is that true?" Jamal hesitated. He did not want to lie, but he also wanted to avoid unnecessary attention. "I got some help," he said simply. "I'm just trying to improve my chances for college." The classmate seemed skeptical, but did not press further. Jamal understood that rumors would continue, but he hoped they would fade over time. He wanted to focus on his studies, not on defending himself against gossip. At home, life began to change. With the initial financial assistance, Jamal's mother arranged to pay overdue utility bills. The apartment felt more comfortable, with the electricity and water bills caught up. She replaced a broken chair and bought healthier groceries. These small improvements made everyday life less stressful. Jamal's mother looked more hopeful each day, and Jamal appreciated seeing her relax a bit. He knew she had worked very hard for a long time without relief. Jamal remembered his father and how he had hoped for a better future for his family. Jamal felt a responsibility to make this opportunity count. He reminded himself that he would not waste it. He also knew that eventually he would want to meet the old woman again, or at least write her a letter. He wanted to thank her personally. For now, he asked the attorney if he could send a letter through the foundation. The attorney said yes, and Jamal began drafting a simple note expressing his gratitude. He wrote it neatly in his notebook before transferring it to a clean sheet of paper. In the letter, he thanked her for believing in him and for giving him a chance to reach his educational goals. He explained that he understood the value of this opportunity and that he would work hard to prove himself worthy of her trust. He kept the letter polite and direct, avoiding emotional language that might seem too dramatic. He wanted to come across as sincere and focused. He handed the letter to the attorney at their next meeting, and the attorney promised to deliver it. As the days passed, Jamal established a routine. After school, he spent more time studying and less time worrying about things he could not control. He realized that this scholarship allowed him to concentrate on his academic performance rather than financial survival. He no longer felt as pressured to find part-time work or other ways to earn money that would likely interfere with his studies. Instead, he could think long-term, planning for college admissions, standardized tests, and the kind of major he might pursue. He considered different fields of study. He wrote down possible majors in his notebook: engineering, business, education, social work. He did not know yet which direction he would take, but he knew he had time to explore. He also listed colleges that the counselor had suggested. Some were close to home, while others were far away. He was not sure if he wanted to move far, but it was good to have options. At this point, Jamal did not feel the same uncertainty he had felt before. He no longer doubted whether accepting help was the right choice. He understood that receiving assistance did not mean he was weak or undeserving. It meant that someone recognized his potential and wanted to give him the tools to succeed. His job was to use those tools wisely. He would remain true to himself and his community, and he would remember that hard work and determination were still necessary. The neighborhood did not change overnight, of course. There were still run-down buildings, broken streetlights, and people who struggled. Jamal did not forget any of this. He walked the same streets, greeted the same neighbors, and never acted as if he was suddenly better than anyone else. He carried his notebook as always, and when people asked how he was doing, he said he was fine and studying hard. He preferred to let his actions speak for themselves. As the month ended, Jamal noticed small improvements in his test scores and class participation. He felt more confident. He learned how to approach teachers with questions and how to make use of resources like the library and online materials. He also learned to manage his time better, balancing study sessions, chores at home, and brief moments of rest. Jamal's mother observed these changes with pride. She encouraged him every day, telling him that she believed in his ability to succeed. He knew that without her support, he would have been lost long ago. Together, they had endured many hardships. Now they had a chance to move forward. Jamal promised himself that one day he would repay this kindness, not only to the old woman who had helped him, but also to others who faced similar challenges. By the end of the week, Jamal felt stable and focused. He understood the path he was on and was ready to continue moving forward, step by step, without letting doubt or fear hold him back. A few weeks later, the attorney arranged for Jamal to meet his new mentor. The mentor worked with the foundation and specialized in guiding students like Jamal through the college preparation process. Jamal arrived at the mentor's small office one afternoon after school. The office was located a short bus ride away, in a neighborhood that looked a bit better maintained than his own. The building was simple, with clean hallways and a waiting area with a few chairs. When he entered the mentor's office, he saw a woman in her 30s, dressed in a neat blouse and slacks. She smiled and introduced herself as Ms. Reed. She explained that her role was to help him select the right courses, prepare for standardized tests, and submit strong college applications. She had worked with many students from various backgrounds, and she understood the challenges Jamal might face. Jamal sat down at a small desk, feeling slightly nervous. He was not used to having personal guidance like this. Ms. Reed asked him about his academic interests and goals. Jamal admitted he was not sure yet what major he wanted, but he enjoyed math and science. Ms. Reed nodded and said that they could explore different fields, look at various colleges, and see which ones matched his interests and financial situation. Ms. Reed showed him a calendar of important dates. test registration deadlines, college application windows, and scholarship opportunities. She explained each one in detail, making sure Jamal understood the steps. Jamal took notes, asking questions when he felt unsure. He realized that this process was complex, but manageable if he stayed organized and followed instructions. Over the next hour, they discussed a study plan for upcoming exams. Ms. Reed suggested materials he could use online and in the school library. She also encouraged him to join a few extracurricular activities that could strengthen his college applications. Jamal was hesitant about extracurricular activities because he was not sure what he was good at. Ms. Reed said it did not have to be anything extraordinary. He could join a club at school or volunteer locally, showing that he was active in his community. Jamal left the meeting feeling more informed, but also aware that there was much work to do. He thanked Ms. Reed and promised to follow her advice. On the bus ride home, he thought about how far he had come in a short time. Not long ago, he had been uncertain about even applying to college. Now he had a mentor, a calendar, and a plan. He felt grateful and determined. The next day at school, Jamal visited the counselor to discuss some of Ms. Reed's suggestions. The counselor helped him identify a few extracurricular activities. One was a community service group that met once a week to tutor younger students in reading. Another was a science club that prepared for small competitions. Jamal decided to try the tutoring group first. He had never taught anyone, but he liked the idea of helping younger students who might be struggling. His participation in these activities took time, but Jamal managed his schedule carefully. He would attend school, stay after class to study or get extra help, then spend an hour once a week tutoring elementary school kids. At first, he was nervous about tutoring. He worried that he would not know how to help, but after a few sessions, he found that he enjoyed guiding the younger students through their reading exercises. He remembered when he was younger and how much he would have benefited from a kind mentor. Still, not everything was easy. Jamal noticed that some classmates spread rumors that he was receiving special treatment or that he had found a way to cheat the system. A few said he must have tricked someone rich into giving him money. These comments upset him, but he tried to ignore them. He reminded himself that he knew the truth. He had done nothing wrong. He had shown kindness and was rewarded unexpectedly. He could not control what others thought. When doubts or stress began to build, Jamal returned to the basics. He focused on his studies, followed Ms. Reed's guidance, and listened to his mother's encouragement. He learned to separate useful criticism from baseless rumors. He understood that not everyone would be happy for him, and that was fine. His job was to keep moving forward without getting sidetracked. At home, the atmosphere was more positive than before. Jamal's mother often asked about his meetings with the mentor and his progress at school. They discussed college options, though they had not decided on anything yet. The important thing was that now they had options. They no longer faced a future limited by financial constraints. Instead, they could consider different paths. Jamal felt empowered by this freedom. One afternoon, Jamal received a message through the attorney that the old woman who had helped him was pleased to hear about his progress. She had read his letter and wanted him to know she believed in him. He smiled, thinking about her kind words when he had first helped her with her groceries. He still remembered that day clearly. He had seen someone in need and had chosen to help without knowing who she was. Now, her trust in him gave him extra motivation. As time passed, Jamal found himself doing better academically. He managed to improve his grades in math and science, which encouraged him to consider fields like engineering or computer science in the future. He still had time to decide. For now, he would keep studying, keep following the plan, and keep working on building a strong college application profile. He also realized that he was not losing himself. He remained respectful and quiet, focused on his goals. He still walked the same streets and lived in the same apartment, even if some things were a bit improved. He had more resources, but he remembered his roots and the struggles he and his mother had faced. If he ever made it into a good college and later into a stable career, he would not forget what it felt like to be on the other side. By the end of the week, Jamal looked at his notebook, now full of notes about deadlines, opportunities, and new responsibilities. He was busy, but it was a good kind of busy, guided by purpose. He understood that the journey would not be easy, but he felt ready to face it with patience and effort. Over the following months, Jamal worked hard to maintain his grades and improve his skills. He continued meeting with Ms. Reed, who guided him through college application requirements. They discussed how to write a strong personal essay, how to prepare for standardized tests, and how to choose the right mix of schools. Jamal felt more confident now than at any point in his life. He understood the process and knew that if he stayed focused, he would have a good chance of being accepted to a respectable college. Still, challenges appeared. One week, he struggled with a series of difficult math problems that left him feeling discouraged. He spent hours trying to solve them, but he kept making mistakes. Frustrated, he considered giving up and skipping the assignment. Instead, he decided to ask for help. He stayed after class and asked his math teacher to review the problems with him. The teacher explained the concepts step by step until Jamal understood. Jamal realized that asking for help was not a sign of weakness. It was a way to learn and improve. As he solved the problems successfully, he felt a new sense of self-reliance. He knew that he could overcome academic obstacles if he put in enough effort and sought guidance when needed. This experience reminded him of what his mother always said: hard work and determination mattered more than instant results. At home, life continued to improve. With financial support from the foundation, they were no longer behind on their bills. The refrigerator had healthier food, and the apartment felt more comfortable. Jamal's mother sometimes had the energy to sit and talk with him in the evening, discussing his progress and goals. She smiled more often, relieved that her son's future was not limited by a lack of funds. Jamal's involvement in the tutoring group also helped him grow. He continued working with younger students in the community, helping them improve their reading skills. Over time, he saw them make progress, and this gave him satisfaction. He understood that education could unlock doors for everyone, not just himself. He wanted to inspire these younger students to keep trying, even when they struggled. The school counselor noticed Jamal's positive changes. She commented on his improved focus and confidence. She reminded him that the college application season would be busy and encouraged him to stay organized. Jamal marked important deadlines in his notebook and created a schedule to keep track of everything. He found it helpful to break tasks down into small steps. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, he tackled each step one by one. Ms. Reed also helped him select a list of colleges to apply to. Some were more competitive than others, but she insisted that applying to a range of schools would give him options. Jamal wrote his personal essay drafts, asking his mother and a trusted teacher to review them. He refined the essays until he felt they represented his true experiences and goals. He wrote honestly about his neighborhood, his family's struggles, and how he learned the value of kindness and perseverance. He explained that he wanted to use his education to make positive changes, not only for himself, but for others in need. As he became more comfortable with his plan, Jamal noticed that negative whispers around school had decreased. Some students still looked at him with suspicion, but most had moved on to other topics. Jamal realized that he did not need everyone's approval. He only needed to do what was right for himself and his family. He remained polite to everyone, never showing anger or resentment. He understood that not everyone would understand his situation, and that was fine. In time, Jamal began to feel that this opportunity had not changed him in a negative way. Instead, it had allowed him to become a better version of himself. He still lived in the same neighborhood, but now he had a path forward. He still remembered the old woman he had helped and felt grateful for her generosity. He was determined to honor it, by succeeding in college and beyond. Jamal's mother sometimes worried that her son would forget his roots if he moved away for college. He assured her that he would return to visit and that he would never forget where he came from. He promised that when he was stable and had a career, he would find ways to support the community. He believed that education could equip him with the tools he needed to bring positive change. His mother believed him and trusted his intentions. During a meeting with Ms. Reed, Jamal mentioned his concerns about balancing college life with staying true to himself. She told him that many students face this challenge. The key was to remember why he started this journey. If he kept his reasons clear, his family, his community, and his personal values, he would remain grounded. Jamal appreciated her advice. It reminded him that accepting help did not mean losing his identity. By the end of this period, Jamal's college applications were nearly complete. He double-checked deadlines, made sure his transcripts were correct, and prepared to submit everything. He felt nervous, but it was a good kind of nervous. He knew that even if he faced rejection from some colleges, he now had the resources and determination to keep trying. He understood that failure was not the end of the road, but a challenge to overcome. In a quiet moment at home, Jamal thought about his father. He remembered his father's hope that Jamal would lead a better life. He wished his father could see how far he had come and the doors that were opening. He felt a sadness for his father's absence, but also pride in carrying his memory forward. He would do his best to honor his father's sacrifice by making the most of this opportunity. By the end of the week, Jamal felt ready to take the final steps toward his future. He had learned to ask for help, to trust his mentors, and to work tirelessly toward his goals. He saw that nothing had been handed to him without reason. He had demonstrated kindness, character, and effort. Now it was time to move closer to the life he had always dreamed of. A few months later, on a sunny morning, Jamal walked through his neighborhood with a calm mind and steady pace. He had submitted his college applications and was waiting for responses. While he waited, he continued studying, tutoring, and helping his mother. He no longer felt trapped in his environment. Instead, he saw it as a place that had shaped him, taught him resilience, and prepared him to face challenges outside its borders. His mother looked more relaxed these days, knowing that their financial situation was more stable. They could pay their rent on time and afford basic necessities without constant anxiety. Jamal noticed that his mother's eyes seemed brighter, as if a weight had been lifted. He was glad she could finally breathe a little easier. When the acceptance letters started to arrive, Jamal opened each envelope with shaking hands. He had applied to several colleges, both nearby and far away. To his relief, he received multiple acceptances, including one from a well-regarded university that offered strong programs in science and engineering. He read the letter over and over, unable to believe that he had come so far. A full scholarship from the foundation, combined with the university's resources, would allow him to focus completely on his education. Jamal's mother hugged him tightly, tears of happiness in her eyes. He felt proud to give her this moment. He knew that everything they had endured had led to this point. He thanked her for her support, and she reminded him that his hard work had made this possible. Together, they discussed the details of attending the chosen university: housing, course registration, and transportation. They would figure out the details step by step. As word spread that Jamal had been accepted to a good college, some neighbors congratulated him. A few people who had doubted him before now seemed impressed. He accepted their congratulations politely, but did not let it go to his head. He understood that people's opinions could change quickly, and that true self-worth did not depend on others' praise. Before leaving for college, Jamal decided to visit the street where he had first helped the old woman. He passed the grocery store where he had seen her struggling with her bags. Standing there, he remembered how unsure he had felt that day. He had hesitated before helping, worried about what others might think. Now he realized that small act of kindness had opened doors he never knew existed. Without that single decision, His life might still be on the same difficult path. He did not know if he would see her again. The attorney had mentioned she was pleased with his progress, but Jamal respected her privacy. He understood that some people, even those with great generosity, preferred quiet lives. He would not push for a meeting unless she desired it. He had already expressed his gratitude in writing. If he had the chance one day to meet her again, he would thank her once more. If not, he hoped she knew how much her kindness had mattered. In the final weeks before leaving for college, Jamal focused on preparing himself mentally. He knew the academic environment would be challenging. He might struggle at first, dealing with advanced coursework and meeting new people from many backgrounds, but now he had confidence that he could overcome obstacles. He understood that he did not have to face them alone. He had mentors, teachers, his mother, and even the memory of his father guiding him. On the day he left for the university, he packed his belongings into a few bags. His mother accompanied him to the bus station. They said their goodbyes, both smiling and crying at the same time. She reminded him that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. Jamal promised to call often and to return during holidays. He stepped onto the bus, holding his notebook filled with plans, schedules, and reminders of who he was and why he had come this far. Arriving on campus, Jamal felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He checked into his dorm, met his roommate, and explored the buildings. Everything was bigger, cleaner, and more organized than anything he had experienced before. He reminded himself that he belonged here. His scholarship and his hard work had earned him a place at this university. He would not doubt himself. Over the first few weeks of classes, Jamal faced many challenges. The coursework was demanding, and he had to adapt to a different teaching style. He felt overwhelmed at times, but he remembered how he had asked for help in high school. He visited professors' office hours, joined a study group, and gradually found his rhythm. Slowly, he adjusted, improving his study methods and building confidence with each success. He kept in touch with his mother, calling her regularly and sharing updates. She sounded happy to hear his voice and learn about his new environment. She told him how proud she was and how proud his father would have been. Jamal thought about his father's memory often, using it as motivation to keep going. Whenever Jamal felt doubt, he thought back to the old woman and the day he helped her. He realized that kindness and opportunity could appear in unlikely moments. He understood that success did not always depend on big, dramatic events. Sometimes it started with one simple, good deed. Over time, Jamal adjusted to college life. He joined clubs, made new friends, and explored career options. He remained focused on his studies while keeping his identity intact. He never forgot his neighborhood or the struggles he had faced. Those experiences had shaped him, giving him perspective and resilience. He knew that one day, if he achieved his goals, he would find ways to give back to others in need. As he walked across the campus one afternoon, thinking about his journey, he felt hopeful and strong. He had turned a simple act of kindness into a life-changing opportunity. He had accepted help without losing himself. He had honored his family and remembered his father. Now he stood with a bright future ahead, ready to become the best version of himself and to help others do the same.